we need to talk about the male loneliness epidemic. I feel like after the Trump election and the B4 movement, everyone is talking about it.
Men's loneliness epidemic.
The male loneliness epidemic.
Male loneliness epidemic.
Male loneliness epidemic.
Male
Loneliness epidemic.
Male loneliness epidemic.
And who am I not to ride the YouTube algorithm? The male loneliness epidemic is not a new phenomenon. Already in the 2010s, scholars have started to talk about the connections between social media and loneliness, especially male loneliness. But this topic has gained much popularity in the past couple of years as a lot of public figures have been talking about it, like internet sweetheart Jordan Peterson.
People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. Now, what a terrible thing to do that is. All these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
FD Signified made an incredible video breaking down the intersections between male desirability, loneliness, and the patriarchy. To summarize, only a small group of men truly benefits from patriarchy, while the rest is left struggling to fit into a narrow definition of masculinity. I'm about to say 2 words that will get me in trouble. Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity tells men they need to suppress their emotions, act aggressive and dominant, and run away from anything feminine, and view women as sexual conquest instead of, people. But it doesn't stop there. Patriarchy imposes a double standard where men are encouraged to exhibit sexual conquest and women are encouraged to be chaste. This creates a disparity between supply and demand in the marketplace of relations, leaving many boys and young men feeling like they can never live up to the idea of being a real man. On top of this, there is the social aspect. Women are generally socialized to build connections with friends and family, while men are more likely to rely on romantic partners to function as primary source of emotional support. When put all these things together, it's not hard to see why so many young men feel isolated and are searching for answers to their loneliness. These factors makes boys and young men particularly vulnerable to sextortion. Before we start, hi, my name is Julia. I'm a certified anti-money laundering specialist, and in my day job, I help businesses comply with anti-money laundering regulations. And here on YouTube, I talk about money laundering, fraud, all of this fun stuff. If you're interested in this topic, please comment, like, subscribe. All of these things really help the channel. Today, we are talking about financial extortion. And if you are here on YouTube, you know how YouTube works and how it doesn't like certain topics. So I will need to censor some words. I'd much rather not, but I spend a lot of time producing these videos and I just would like for people to watch them. So let's get into it. Financial extortion is a form of blackmail that usually starts with someone connecting with a stranger online. The person on the other end often lies about their gender and their age to trick the victim into sharing nude photos. Once they have those images, the victim is asked for money and threatened that if they don't pay, their photos will be sent to friends and family and posted online. Financial extortion is the fastest growing crime targeting teenagers and young men in many English-speaking countries. The Network Contagion Research Institute states that virtually all the financial extortion targeting minors today is directly linked to a West African cybercriminal group called the Yahoo Boys. The Yahoo Boys took their nickname from the use of yahoo.com email to conduct phishing scams in the 1990s. They are a group of cybercriminals, mostly based in Nigeria, who have been associated with many online scams. They are the OG Nigerian prince, and now they do elderly fraud, fake job scams, romance scams, and in the past couple of years, extortion. Paul Raffel, intelligence specialist and extortion expert, explained the why of such rapid increase in extortion in the past couple of years.
So there's been an explosion of this within the past 18 months specifically. And the reason for that is an overseas criminal, loosely affiliated criminal group called the Yahoo Boys are the principal actor responsible for this resurgence of financial extortion targeting teens. we've actually been able to track a lot of their groups and their messages and even their like how-to scripts, like how to blackmail kids. We're finding these material openly accessible on YouTube, on TikTok, where these criminals are using their own real profiles to basically brag about these scams that they're committing against people abroad, here in the US, elsewhere. They're posting the cash apps that they receive. They're posting the messages that they torment their victims with. And worst of all, they're sharing these how-to scripts of, how to commit extortion. Here's the step-by-step process. Here's how to blackmail them for money. Here's how to accept the money, and here's how to cash out. These have basically gone viral within these criminal groups within the past 18 months. And they're all encouraging each other to get in on this scam because it is very profitable. And these platforms have actually been unable to moderate and take down a lot of these material before it got out of control.
The Yahoo Boys subculture has become deeply rooted in the Nigerian internet scene. The members of the gang have profiles on Instagram and Snapchat with their real name, showing off their wealth as proof of their success. Still, despite all of this evidence, it's very hard to catch them because they live in Nigeria while their victims are in the US or in the UK, and that makes prosecution difficult. Also, they use money laundering techniques to distance themselves from their crimes and throw off the investigations. But prosecution is not impossible. I can't say that. Hush Puppy, whose real name is Ramon Abbas, started as a Yahoo boy and then became a prominent social media influencer and scammer. He had been flaunting his expensive cars, clothes, and watches online for years. Abbas was arrested in Dubai in 2020, where he used to live, and sentenced in Los Angeles in 2022, where he pleaded guilty to money laundering and other fraud. He received an 11-year sentence plus restitution payments to the victims. To understand how extortion works, we need to look at some data. I found a study by the Canadian Centre for Child Protection published back in November 2022. It's a bit old, but it has a lot of information, so bear with me with this one. The center analyzed posts on the subreddit r/extortion and found that financial extortion usually targets young male teenagers. The analysis showed that 98% of victims were male. One of the victims shared his experience. Early today, I had accepted this person on my Instagram page. After talking a few minutes, we moved on to Snapchat. Then the scammers sent some nudes images and I stupidly sent some back. After that, they had a screenshot of my whole following list from Instagram. Most of them were my family members, and they threatened that they will expose me if I didn't send them money. This is the Yahoo Boy playbook. The victims are tricked into thinking they're talking to a girl their age, but the pictures are just stolen or they are AI-generated images. The scammer usually makes the first contact on Instagram and then quickly moves the conversation to Snapchat. The victim often notices red flags like poor grammar, the scammer pushing to switch platform, or how quickly the conversation turns sexual. But everything else checks out. Scammers use bots to boost engagement, showing high Snapchat score and large number of Instagram followers. They'll even join school or community group to look like they are local. One victim said, "Yesterday I got a follow request from a random girl on Instagram with 1.1k followers and plus 500 following. She had 12 mutual friends as me, so I ended up accepting her account." On Snapchat, the criminals use pre-recorded videos to make it look like they are streaming live, so the victim thinks that they're talking with the real girls. Also, victims feel a false sense of security because Snapchat has branded itself as the social media where pictures disappears. They even have a ghost in their logo, but this is not true. Cyber criminals can still screenshot the victim's photos without even triggering any notifications. On top of this, I also think it plays the human factor, the desire for connection that many boys have, the wishful thinking that that is a real girl. The next stage is blackmail. The scammer demands money, threatening to send the pictures to all the victims' family and friends if they don't pay. To double down on the threat, the scammer also takes a screenshot of the victim contact list to show that they can follow through whenever they want. Once Snapchat users have their precise location enabled, scammers can also see the Snap map, where they can see the real-time position of the victim and send screenshot of the map to prove that they know where the victim is, which is extra terrifying. The precise location feature isn't enabled by default, but Snapchat encourages users to turn it on by promising access to extra features. Now I am going to put my Auntie Julia hat on. Children, get around, come here. What can you do to protect yourself? First rule, of course, don't send nudes online, but if you do send nudes and something bad happens, ask for help from an adult that you trust. And most importantly, block the scammer and don't pay. According to the Canadian report that we were just looking at before, 93% of victims who paid were asked for more money. And also, the pictures were leaked anyway in 38% of cases where the victim paid, and in 30% of cases where they didn't pay, which means that pay won't make much of a difference. So what are platforms doing to prevent extortion? You will be surprised to know not much at all. They're not doing much. What did you expect? They're just millionaires. I mean, they don't have the means, they don't have the tools. They need to save money. They can't deal with this. It's too hard. It's too hard for them. I get it. In July 2024, Meta, the company behind Facebook and Instagram, deleted the 63,000 Nigerian Instagram accounts linked to the Yahoo Boys. Just a few months later, in September, the Scottish Sun easily found dozens of accounts open and run by people calling themselves Yahoo Boy. The Scottish Sun even contacted one scammer who offered to teach the method for just under £800. The article concludes, despite removing thousands of posts and images linked to the Yahoo Boys, we can reveal that Meta is losing the battle against the gangs. On the other hand, Snapchat acknowledges the extortion risks and have a page dedicated to financial extortion awareness. On the page, Snapchat states that they have improved the reporting systems by adding tailored reporting reasons for financial extortion. They also provide helpline contacts and best practices for parents and children using Snapchat. But New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres believes that what Snapchat is currently doing to prevent extortion is not enough, and that actually Snapchat has policies and design features that facilitates the sharing and distribution of child sexual exploitation material. After months of investigation, New Mexico took legal action against Snap, which is the parent company of Snapchat. In September 2024, Torres said, Snap has misled users into believing that photos and videos sent on the platform will disappear. But predators can permanently capture this content, and they have created a virtual yearbook of child sexual images that are traded, sold, and stored indefinitely. New Mexico is not new to taking legal actions against social media platforms. Already in December 2023, New Mexico sued Meta for exposing children to pornography and sex predators. The lawsuit argues that Zuckerberg, who is named as co-defendant, bears personal responsibility for the app design decisions that have placed children at risk. In both the Snapchat and the Meta investigations, state officials set up fake accounts with AI-generated images of girls aged 14 years and under, and launched them to interact with users, and they only received age-appropriate messages and all-around pleasant connections. No, they just got pics. That's all they got. Dick pics, that's all.
Oh, won't somebody please think of the children?
On top of the lawsuits in New Mexico, the United States has promoted a bill aimed at protecting children online. The Kids Online Safety Act, KOSA, focuses on many important measures. KOSA requires social media platforms to provide parents with tools to monitor and manage their children's behavior online, and to establish stronger age verification requirements to ensure that children are not exposed to harmful content. Also, KOSA demands transparency from social media companies about their practices and the effectiveness of their safety measures. The bill passed the Senate in July 2024, but it still needs to be approved by the House of Representatives and signed by the President to become law. But Meta is putting up a fight. In December 2024, Paul Raphael alleged in a LinkedIn post that House Speaker Mike Johnson and Majority Leader Steve Scalise, both from Louisiana, I voted bringing COSA to a vote in the House of Representatives because Meta announcement of a $10 billion data center in Louisiana. Raffle concluded, Meta just killed the Kids Online Safety Act and subverted our democracy. Platforms are resistant when it comes to new regulatory compliance because content moderation and accountability, transparency like COSA request requires software updates, monitoring process, and continuous work. All of these things cost money, and shareholders don't want to spend that money. They'd much rather just have profit. Also, restrictions can make the user experience worse, and there is nothing that social media platforms hate more than us putting down our phones. As a side note, just a few days ago from recording this video, Zuckerberg announced cutbacks on fact-checking, which is all another story, but it shows how Meta is fighting for less accountability as possible. I think that one solution to extortion is dismantling patriarchy and reconstructing masculinity to address male loneliness. But this is kind of a long-term project. We might need some time to get to that. So there are other things that we can do now. Social media platforms cannot stop extortion, but they can make it much harder. First, social media platforms should redesign the system to ensure that underage users' accounts are automatically private by default, with their followers and contact lists hidden, even after users are connected with each other. Platforms should avoid nagging young users to add strangers or share personal details like their real-time location. Also, we know that Meta has the technology to blur nude images, even though at this point, this is kind of useless because users can turn off the features whenever they want. But if social media platforms have the AI technology to blur images, they also have the technology to block them. Social media companies should ensure that nude images are automatically blocked for underage users. And if this is not possible, they should prevent underage users from sending or receiving direct messages altogether. Already, TikTok does not allow for direct messages for users below 16 years of age. But I know it's more complicated than this. I know that kids can bypass the restrictions by changing their date of birth in their account, and this is why some legislators like the European Union and other countries are now pushing to require social media platforms to verify users' age with an official identity document. This will help enforce restriction and protect children, and it will also help law enforcement to identify the perpetrators of cyberbullying and other online crimes. But there is a lot of restriction at these laws, and we're still a bit far from them. Social media platforms aren't the only company, the only players that can make a difference. When victims fall into the scams and they agree to pay, they use payment services like PayPal, gift card, cryptocurrency, or money transfer business like Western Union and Venmo. These payment services are usually subject to anti-money laundering and anti-fraud laws in most countries. This means that they are required to monitor transactions and to report any suspicious activity to the relevant authorities, which generally is the National Financial Intelligence Unit. Payment services need to develop clear policies, procedures, and controls to minimize the risk that their platforms are used to pay for scammers and pay for extortion. How to do that in practice? These businesses should invest in training their staff to recognize red flags associated with extortion. These businesses also need to implement effective monitoring mechanisms to detect scammers. Most financial institutions already use automated transaction monitoring tools. In practice, the business can set up a rule in their monitoring software, for example, flagging all high-value transactions or flagging all rapid transactions made within a day or something like that. And when these rules are triggered, an alert is generated and a person needs to manually review the transaction, ask more questions to the client and stuff like that, maybe blocking it, reporting it, things like that. Often this type of flags and alerts fail to detect extortion. This is because scammers ask for a very small amount of money, like $200, $300, because they know well that teenagers don't have a lot of cash and they're more likely to comply if the payment is small, if what they ask is a little bit of money. Small payments often do not raise any red flags, and a solution will be to treat a children's account differently from adults' account. For example, setting lower alert threshold, maybe $100 instead of $1,000 for all children's transactions. If you made it till here, thank you so much for watching. I'm leaving you some resources on sextortion and all helplines that you can call if you or someone that you know falls victim of sextortions. Comment, like, subscribe, you know the usual. Also, give me a follow on LinkedIn where I talk more about anti-money laundering, and I'll see you on the next one.